Hi, you guys. It's Mrs. Taylor from the Addams School Garden. Welcome to all you elementary students. It's so nice to see you. And you know what? I'm here for our spring garden lesson. And today we're going to be thinking together all about nature's patterns. All right, I'm going to show my screen to you guys because we're going to start with a critter that I think you probably know. Right? I think you guys already know a snail. Right? Think about what a snail is like. Use your senses. Does it make a sound? Can you smell it? Hopefully you don't want to taste it, but we might touch it, right? And it might feel slippery and slimy. Today, though, we're most interested in the shape of its shell. Reach out right now, find the center of that spiral in the middle of that snail shell and trace it going outwards until your circles get larger and larger. What we're going to do today is notice things like spirals and other shapes and other ways that nature moves. And if there's something that happens over and over again, nature might be telling us it's worth paying attention to. In fact, just a minute, let me go back. The whole world, if we really start to look closely, can be put into different ways nature is doing things. And sometimes those are patterns, right? When things repeat and we notice that they happen over and over again. On the bottom of the picture of the screen, I see some black and white. How would we categorize those black and white? Would we use maybe the word stripes? Lots of things in nature have stripes. In fact, I'm going to show you right here. This is a sunflower seed. Can you guys see that? It has black and white stripes too. Two what we think of as very different things. Seeds and zebras might have some similarities. What about at the top of the screen? I see where the soil has become really dry and stressed and started to break apart, right? Maybe we can notice why or ask why that pattern might happen, or certainly the center of a sunflower. Maybe when we get back together safely in the garden next year, we'll grow some sunflowers together. All right, now at this point in your elementary life, I think you might have encountered patterns before, and sometimes they look like this one at the top, right? Sometimes in math, we try to figure out what comes next. And this is not only knowing what comes next, but it helps us develop a way of thinking that knows that if we look at what's happened before, we might be able to tell logically what's happening next. Let's look at this pattern at the top. I see a green square and a blue one. Green, green, blue. Green, green, blue. What happens next? And how do we know what happens next? When we're looking for patterns, we're developing a logical and scientific way of thinking about what might comes next. If you have ever gone to the beach, you might have seen the waves. Use your body now to move like a wave. How do we know it's going to go out back towards the ocean and come back in towards the beach? How do we know that? We can sense that there's a rhythm there, right? But it's not that we're wondering if it's going to happen, right? We know it will. And again, that's developing that sort of logical way of thinking at looking at what happened before, asking why it happens, and predicting what will happen next. Even trees and their branching pattern can show us there is a pattern. If we use our bodies now to be the trunk of a tree, right? At some point, that trunk is going to split into two more pieces, and even two more might branch off of that. And we're going to look in our very own garden to see if we can find a fractal or branching pattern. Things that are the same on both sides, that's a type of a pattern. It's called symmetry, like the butterfly in this picture, and even human beings, even we have symmetry. If you can imagine putting a line down the middle of your face, or you can use your hand, is your face the same on both sides? Are there eyes on either side of our imaginary line? Or your smile? Does your smile look the same on both sides? If there's someone there with you now, you could turn to that person, right? Do you see how you both might have some symmetry on either side? That's a pattern worth noticing. Shapes can also be patterns, right? We saw the spiral earlier, but look at this shape. There's a repeating shape here. Pencils have this shape, right? Honeycomb or bees have this shape. Let's use our finger now. I want to count the sides of the shape, and I'm going to use the pencil because that one is the biggest image on our screen. Let's count together now. Find one side and start there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I counted 6 sides. If you want to confirm and try again and confirm that there are 6 there, or you could use the honeycomb or one of the other images. 6 sides, that is a hexagon, you guys. That is a hexagon shape. And you know what? Nature uses that often. It's really strong. That shape is very strong and very efficient. You can fit a lot of hexagons in a space, and there's no extra space left. It's very efficient. In fact, if we could use a high-powered microscope and zoom in on a chocolate bar, you would even notice that chocolate uses a hexagon to keep that chocolate bar very strong and make that snapping sound when you break it, all because of the hexagons. Spirals, just like the snail shell, are very prevalent in nature. There's lots of images here. I'm going to move my little screen here so you guys can see. Spirals happen over and over again. You can trace some of these swirls, or you can model. Like if we were that butterfly right there, that long spiral that you see in front of the butterfly is actually its slurping tongue. It's called a proboscis. And it wants a really long tongue so that it can stick into the deep end of a flower to get the very, very nectar. But you know what? It can't wander or fly around with that big long tongue. So it curls it up in that efficient spiral shape right in front of its face to keep it tidy while it moves to the next flower, and then it can extend it out. I see a sea creature on this page that uses its tentacle in a spiral way, right? That is an octopus. And even a bird, actually a field mouse has made that little nest that you see there, and that must really work well for that field mouse. Otherwise, nature wouldn't have that shape. Cycles, repeating circles in nature are some of the things we've become familiar with together this year, right? The first one, find the banana in this picture. Do you see the banana? What's the story of that banana's life? Do you remember that we put it under the brick? In fact, we're going to check on it in just a few minutes. It's going to become soil, and that soil then becomes available to the next plant to grow, and around and around. During our chicken hatch, we know that the baby chick will grow into an adult chicken, and if it's a female, it'll lay an egg, and the cycle happens over and over again. And when we notice that different pieces of things are connected in a cycle, it kind of makes its own system altogether. It can be a complicated whole. And what I'm wondering is if we could use this sort of cycle thinking, circular thinking, to apply it to things that maybe aren't in nature really. Could it help us think about something in a new way? In fact, I'm going to share a video with you guys. We're going to watch it together when we try to apply the cycle of thinking or the story in a circle to a t-shirt. You might not know this, but t-shirts start their life as a cotton plant. That's the little image there on the left with that fluffy little ball of cotton on it. That cotton is grown on a cotton farm, and then it's woven into a shirt like the one I have on or the one in this picture. But what I'm most curious about is, can we tell the story of a shirt in a circle or a cycle, just like we did with our banana and just like we did with our chickens? All right, I'm going to share my screen now. Or actually, I'm already sharing. I'm going to turn the video on. Let me make sure I shared with audio so you guys can hear this successfully. There we go. All right, let's get ready to watch the video together, made by our filmmaker always, Miss Audrey, our Cal State Long Beach student. Let's see how she extends our thinking to the cycle of a shirt. Here we go.
Every day, we engage in cycles. Patterns are like clues from nature, showing us how things are organized and connected. What might these patterns be telling us? Now let's think back to other patterns or cycles that we've experienced together. How can these cycles help us think in new ways? Where else can we try to think in cycles? By observing these patterns, we might see a creative place to jump in and make a change.
All right, my friends. Oh, just a minute. Airplane's going over. Looking here to see where my video went. What I'm curious about is what Audrey was sharing with us, right? The video maker. Oh, we don't need to watch it again. About how we can think in new ways and use our nature pattern thinking to apply to things that we might not even know should be thought of in that way, like the story of a shirt. All right, when we look at patterns for clues, sometimes we can zoom out or step back and look at those things in the picture of how they're connected to other things. For example, what do you think you see on your screen right now? Do you see in the center of the screen, there's all those little gray dots? It's hard to see what that is when we're zoomed in so close. So let's take a step back. Are we noticing something else now that we get a broader perspective of what this pattern might be telling us? It might be part of a bigger system. And lastly, when we zoom all the way out, we can say, aha, I see what that is, right? It gives us a different perspective, right? And helps us answer big questions about why things are happening when we know they're all connected. All right, as always, we will have some extension activities that we'll send to you guys to continue thinking about patterns. And now it's your turn. You could make a snack where you are that shows a pattern, right? Nature notes are giving us a chance to play and make our own patterns, maybe with a flower petal, maybe with things we have outside, or right in our very inside space. Math Minds is thinking about different patterns of symmetry, same on both sides, right? And the branching patterns of trees and how we can transfer those into numbers. We have some yoga and also a fabulous story time called Swirl by Swirl, which again has its thinking and noticing a lot of nature's patterns. All right, you know what we're gonna do now, you guys? We're gonna take my garden Zoom. You know how I always go to the Zoom on my phone here and take you on a tour of the garden, because we're gonna look in nature right here in your garden now for some of these patterns that we can see together. All right, now we often have a counting challenge, right? When I try to do this, move to the Zoom. And this time we're just gonna see how high you can count. Don't do it yet. When I say go, I want you to start at 1 and start counting, and I'll meet you on the Zoom phone. Ready, set, go. All right, students, here I am. Stop counting. How high did you get? I know you guys do amazing work with your numbers. All right, let me turn my Zoom now so you can see what I see, and let's go searching for patterns. One of the ones we talked about together, right, is our banana peel, right? That was one of the very first things we did together. We put a banana peel under this rock, or this brick, didn't we? We predicted what would happen. Let's take a look. We've already checked on it, but now look at that. It is really becoming part of the soil or dirt. But we know that that's not where the story ends. All the parts of this banana body are going to go back into soil, and guess what? Their story is to go and grow into something new. Look, I started these little bean plants here in this old recycled egg carton. In fact, that could be a cycle too, right? Taking something that might go in the trash, like Audrey's t-shirt in the video, and using it again. It's going to go into these bean plants. So the banana peel turns into soil, is available to another plant, and maybe sometime when this bean is done growing, it can go back to the soil too. So here we have our cycle. In the meantime, my friends, we're going to put a new banana peel on the dirt, right? Because we want to continue that process, and we'll be checking that again together in another garden lesson. All right, think back also to the very first time we met. I showed you some caterpillars, and guess what? They're part of a circular story too, because caterpillars eat this plant and this plant only. It's called the butterfly milkweed, and in fact, we can even see a pattern there, can't we, on that flower. We could see a repeating pattern with its petals. Is it symmetrical? Is it the same on both sides? All right, so this plant is important because we're gonna see how a mama butterfly has laid its egg on this leaf. I don't know if you can see, it's really small, but I'm gonna point to it with my finger right here where my thumb is. That little, let's see, that little dot right there is the butterfly egg. Now, the mother butterfly plants it there, and then the next part of the cycle is, guess what? It hatches out and becomes this. Do you see where my finger is pointing? It's a tiny little caterpillar. I'll zoom in, but I don't want it to get blurry, right? It's a tiny little caterpillar. Can you see that? There's some other ones over here. Let me show you another one. Look at this. They're like newborn caterpillars. Do you see right where my thumb was there? And here's one more. Right on the edge of that leaf. All right, there it is. Now, those caterpillars are going to grow into bigger caterpillars, right? And do you remember we saw that little green shell that hooked itself to like the trellis or the fence? Then it hatches into a butterfly. Then the butterfly lays an egg. We have the egg, right? There's the egg. We have the baby caterpillar, right? That grows into a bigger caterpillar. And then we have the chrysalis and then the butterfly. See, so that story is also a repeating pattern. All right, my friends, one more thing I want to look at is the branching pattern of a tree, right? We talked about that, didn't we? We talked about that in the garden Zoom. Sometimes pattern called fractal pattern starts and makes different, it repeats over and over again. The tree starts with a branch, right? And two branches come off. But if you notice, it keeps doing the same thing with two more, until it reaches the very tippy top, right? Here's a place where we see two, right? The branching. Here's another place where we see two, and over again. So even anything as simple as a tree that you might be able to see through your window, or you might be able to go outside and notice, right? All tells us about how our systems of nature are organized. So I tell you what, my friends, it has been amazing to share these garden times with you this year. And we will look forward to doing more thinking and growing in person, right? When it's safe, hopefully in the fall together. We might even have a new garden space here at Addams, but we will be thinking and learning together in the garden, all right? So take care and thank you so much, you guys. Have a great summer and we'll see you next year.